Hello and welcome to the Silver King's War. I'm Michael Sievers, the writer, producer, and creator of this podcast series about my father's Second World War as a B-26 bombardier. Today we continue in the epilogue for Dearest Ones, the letters that our hero, the Silver King, wrote to his family throughout the war. It's late May of 1945, and the Silver King is quite busy during his final 10 days of the month. The king is still writing from Germany and explaining things about the post-war period to his family. On May 21st, 1945, Dearest Ones, all the fellows have gone to the movies, so for a change it's quiet and conducive to writing. Happily, I received your very sweet letters today. They are May 11th, 13th, and 14th. I feel guilty hearing from you so often while you aren't receiving mine. I know I haven't been writing as often as before, but you should have heard from me since April 20th. Undoubtedly, something has held up the mail. I really am sorry to cause you to worry. Maybe it will clear up soon. I'm anxious to hear how Lee makes out in Washington. It will be ironical if he is drafted now. Up to VE Day, I had flown 27 actual missions, but with credits it was boosted to 31. That gives me the air medal with 4 clusters. Now, don't go putting that into the serviceman. I've had enough publicity for always. When you see the rabbi, just don't talk about me. And I'll never write him because I'm too ashamed. I still don't know what's going to happen to us. It seems we're going back to France. For how long, no one knows. It may be 1 year, 6 months, or 1 week. Whichever it may be, I figure the longer I remain here, the less chance I have of going to the Pacific. For sure, once I return to the States, it would only be 3 or 4 months before I go out again. You see, flying personnel must serve 2 tours of duty before they can remain in the States for good. And though I miss you terribly and want nothing more than to be home again, I feel I'm better off under the existing circumstances. At least I'm not being shot at here. Yesterday was beautiful and warm, and we have a car which was given to us when we took the trip into the Ruhr Valley. It was a Wehrmacht car taken by the military government and given to us for the asking. It's a real convenience. Yesterday afternoon, a buddy and myself drove into Venlo. It was just like being home and taking a ride on a Sunday afternoon. We met 2 young ladies and took a ride in the country. It was lots of fun, especially trying to master the Dutch language. Outside of that, it was like being in the States again. So it really isn't a bad life. And Wednesday, I'm going to Brussels on a 3-day pass. I haven't been there yet, but I hear it's quite the place. Some say it's even better than Paris. I'll write the details when I return. I'm fine and thinking of you constantly, hoping you're well. Love to Cece and Ida. I love you and miss you, Stan. The king's acknowledgement to his family that so far the post-war life seems good. And it's explained simply as he describes riding through the countryside in a German car, a Wehrmacht car. And with a 3-day pass in his pocket for a trip to Brussels, which he has not seen. It's an exciting last week of May. As the king relates over 6 dense pages on May 27th, 1945. Dearest Ones, 4 days have passed since my last writing, and they were undoubtedly the fastest 4 days ever experienced. If I didn't know better, I would swear I had skipped a day somewhere. It was all so fast, it seemed more like a dream rather than reality. simply because I enjoyed myself to the utmost. Indeed, my short leave couldn't have been better if I had planned every minute of it before embarking. To come back here is such a terrific letdown. I honestly feel miserable. It was going from the sublime to the ridiculous, and I'm existing in the ridiculous at the moment. I had a much better time in Brussels than Paris, though perhaps that was due to a certain factor which didn't exist in Paris. Nevertheless, I was impressed greater with Brussels as a large city. Paris might be prettier with its famous and well-known landmarks, but it was lacking in the hustle and bustle found in Brussels. Paris might be classified as a sightseeing city, while Brussels falls in the category of a busy big city. The streets are jammed with automobiles, of which surprisingly more American-made were the majority. There were quite a few models as late as 1942. This was something you didn't see in Paris. There didn't seem to be any gasoline shortage. I was very much impressed with the modern apartment buildings. It was the first I had seen over here to equal the States. We left here Wednesday morning by truck. Arriving there for lunch, we were billeted in one of the hotels which has been taken over by the Army. It was a nice place, but nothing extraordinary. However, we weren't charged for the rooms or the meals, which I still can't understand. The first afternoon I spent in the barber shop, I got the works, everything down to a manicure. And I came out feeling like $1 million. It's a real treat to go to a barber. Remember how I used to hate it? Now I look forward to it. That night we started out to hit all the night spots. There's only one really nice place by the name of Corso's. The rest of the places are mostly dives. And women. The place is running over with them. I saw some beautiful women in Paris, but not as many to compare with Brussels. About 8 of every 10 are blonde and dressed very attractively. Walking into Corso's at night is like walking into a floor show. The place is packed with them sitting around the floor at tables, waiting to be dated. For a guy who hasn't seen a pretty woman or dated one for a few months, it isn't hard to take. Now for the best part of all. The following evening at dinner in the hotel, I ran into 2 nurses from Koblenz. It was by strange stroke of fate, and a most fortunate one, as it was like seeing someone from home. They were there on a pass, just as I was, and we still had 2 days to spend together. That night we went to the dance in the hotel, which was just for the officers on leave. Well, I've had fun at dances before, but I can't remember when I had enjoyed myself so completely. It seemed as though everything were perfect, the music, the drinks, and most of all my date. At first I thought it would be strange and difficult to date an American girl again. I was afraid I had lost my technique and ability to entertain, but I found I hadn't, and we had a grand time. It was so much like being in a nightclub in the States. Someday I would like to come back here to revisit all the places I've been. It would be a wonderful experience. Well, Saturday had to roll around, and that meant we had to leave. Upon returning, I found 2 very sweet letters from you, and today I received another. They are dated May 15, 17, and 18. I'm glad you're finally receiving my mail also. I was most surprised to hear that Jackie gave birth to a girl. I had no idea she was even pregnant. The family is enlarging so fast, I can hardly keep up with it. I'm glad Cece is enjoying herself. You certainly are keeping busy. I still don't know what will happen to us, just that we are going back to France. The transportation problem is so terrific, I suppose it will be quite some time before we get home. Thanks for the stamps. I wish you would keep sending packages. One of the fellows received a jar of dill pickles, which were delicious. Please try to send me some, along with other foods. I'm fine and thinking of you constantly, hoping you're well. Love to Cece and Ida. I love you and miss you, Stan. Now our hero, the Silver King, a man of 22, is comparing the bright lights and big city versions of Paris versus Brussels. He loved city life and he loved to party. And I'm surprised that maybe he didn't think about going AWOL in Brussels and somehow eluding the military police and finding civilian clothes. Stanley's search for dill pickles continues as he and his guys remain in Germany in late May. And he writes to his family on May 27th, 1945. Dearest Ones, I have your letters of May 20 and 21, and also your package containing chicken, shrimp, and cheese. These were most welcome, and I thank you. The weather has been miserable for the past week. It has rained almost every day here, and it makes it very chilly. Thank goodness we're going back to France. A few more months of this, and all of us would blow our tops. At least in France, we can go into the different cities, like Saint Quentin, Reims, and Amiens, to get some diversion. Of course, I don't know how long we'll remain there, though I hope and expect to be home sometime in the fall. The king, writing in late May, is hoping to be home by fall, and that's got to be disappointing as he continues to ask for help. I wish you would do a little shopping for me. I need some green ties, and all I can find here are khaki ones. Also, I need a new cap to go home with. The one I have is so battered, I would be ashamed to land in the States with it. I want only one type, the Bancroft Flighter size 7. Please see if you can find one for me and about 3 ties. But don't send any cap other than the one I have specified. I would appreciate it. I'm fine and thinking of you constantly, hoping you're well. Love to Cece and Ida. I love you and miss you, Stan. Understandably, the king is struggling with the difference between the big-time events and city experiences in Brussels, or the return to the boredom and dismal weather in Germany. He's hopeful about getting back to France and at least visiting some of his old haunts near A72. And he does write from France on the very last day of May, the 31st, in 1945. Dearest Ones, once again I'm back in France, back in the very same hole I left 4 weeks ago. Although we're living in a brick building instead of a wooden barrack, everything else is the same. This is the second day here, and already I'm fed up with it. There isn't a damn thing to do all day. And we could go into San Quentin for some diversion, but since we can't take a shower, we hate to put on clean clothes over a dirty body. After we left here the first time, the French civilians stripped the building of all the plumbing, and now we must wait until it's replaced before we can become clean again. Believe me, sometimes I think I'll lose my mind if I don't get out of here soon. You asked why some of my letters were sent from Holland while others Germany. The way it was, we were based on the border. Headquarters was in Germany while I was living in Holland. The border ran right through the field. For the record, the town nearest us while there was Venlo, just north of Aachen. Today received your letter of May 22nd, also one from Leona. Your mail is a real godsend. I only wish it would come through twice a day. Due to the lull and monotony, there really isn't any more news. I'm fine and thinking of you constantly, hoping you're well. Love to Ida. I love you and miss you, Stan. P.S. Please send some dill pickles. I'm craving them like mad. The Silver King's pickle problem has followed him throughout the war, and I've enjoyed all of his requests for food and goodies, and he is definitely a pickle man, as am I. And as our hero finishes what started as a very busy month of May and concludes with some boredom, we have reached the end of this episode in the epilogue of Dearest Ones, the letters that our hero, the Silver King, wrote to his family throughout the war. And this is part 37. And you are listening to the Silver King's War.